Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Marion, and this tutorial I'm going to show you how to crochet this turtleneck sweater, and the tutorial for the skirt and the leg warmers will be in the description box. Please subscribe if you haven't and enjoy this video. Thank you. You will need medium weight yarn. I'm using Robin 100% acrylic. This particular ball is 50 grams, so I will be doubling my strands to achieve the medium weight because this one is fingering. You also need a 3.5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, a tape measure to take your measurements. You also need some stitch markers and a pair of scissors. We worked the first panel for the sweater, the body of the sweater, and I used my bust measurements, which is 17 inches long. This one comes to up to 17 and a half, which is okay. Now to construct this, you need to make a chain long enough to achieve your bust measurements, and for me I chained 72. So let's see. To make a chain, insert your hook and make a slip knot, and now we are going to chain 72. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. So I have my chain already 72, but you have a different number depending on your bust measurement. Now for that I'm going to add 2, 1 2, and this 2 is acting as a turning chain. And now we're going to go into the fourth chain to make a double crochet. So to make a double crochet, insert a hook in that chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert a hook in the next chain, yarn over, pull through. You have 1 2 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we will continue making these double crochets until we get to the end of the chain. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, insert your hook in the next, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So I'm going to continue making these double crochets until I have a total of 72. Of course, you have a different number according to the measurements that you're using. Once you're done with that row, you will chain 2, turn your work, and go into the next double crochet on top of it, make a double crochet. So continue making double crochets on top of each double crochet until you get to the end of this row. Now you will continue working these double crochets on top of each and every row, and by the end of it you should attain your length measurement, the length that you want to construct for your sweater top. Mine is going to be 13 inches long without the border. Of course, when I add the border later on it will be 15 inches long, but this part that I'm making is going to be 13 inches. So you're going to work these double crochets, rows of double crochets, and attain the length of the sweater. Once you're done working the first panel, you will go ahead and work another panel, because we are working with 2 panels, and then later on we will combine them to make the sweater. I went ahead to complete my top. It's 13 inches at the moment. I have worked 29 rows in total. Of course, you can have less or more according to the size that you're making. Remember, we are going to add 2 inches down here for the border, so put that into consideration. Now at this moment you can see I have marked my sweater And this point, this one is going to be the neck area, and this part is going to be the armhole. So you can take your stitch markers and get those measurements. For my armhole, it's going to be 6 inches. I have marked that and attached a stitch marker on both sides of the sweater top, you can see. And then also I want my neck to be 16 inches, so that half end is 8. So I have also mapped this area the same. So do that, and then now we will sew in our seams. We are doing the side seam and the shoulder seam at this point. So you can see I did not cut my yarn because I want to use that to work my seam, and I'm going to be using single crochets to work this seam. So to do this, you will just pull the chain 1 to this other side, and then chain 1 and turn your work, and you will take the loops on this side and loops on the other side, and then pull up a loop through them all and do a single crochet. Make sure you're going through both loops on both panels. And these seams are worked on the wrong side, so when you're working, make sure you're working on your wrong side, whichever side you identify to be the wrong side. So once I reach here, I will chain 1 and cut the yarn, and then I want to reattach my yarn on this part also and do the same, seam the same here. I have completed the shoulder seams. Now I want to do the side seams, both of them. I'm going to reattach my yarn on this side, right where the stitch marker is. So I make a slip knot and then insert my yarn right at the marked part, and remove the stitch marker. Then now we are going to pull that chain that we just made on our hook, and pull up that loop to the other side. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then now we're going to be working two single crochets in each row. So I will place the first and the second, and then go directly into the next row, this one. So put 2 single crochets on this stitch here, and then go directly into the next. On this stitch, put 2 single crochets, go into the next and put 2 single crochets. So we are putting 2 single crochets in each and every row. So you will do that until you get to this point, and then cut off your yarn and reattach on this other side and do the same thing. You get to the bottom here, you will chain one and cut your yarn. So this is what you should be having at this point. We have our armhole, just waiting to construct the sleeve from here. So I'm going to do this other side seam and then we will do the next step together. This is what you should be having at this point after you have worked all the seams. And now we are going to work the sleeves, the two sleeves, and then we'll come back, work the neck area, and then later on we'll figure out how to finish this border part, the underbust area. Now let's put this aside. Sleeves, there are two measurements we are going to consider. We are going to work with the sleeve length and the width of the sweater, which is the armhole measurement. So take that. I am working with 20 inches long and 12 inches wide. So I'm going to make a chain long enough to cover 20 inches and I'm going to chain 80 in total. Make a chain, as you already know, you'll just yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. That is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to chain this until I have 80 chains. I have my 80 chains. I will turn and go into the 4th chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, and start making double crochets. Now I'm going to work double crochets until I get to the end of the chain. So each chain gets a single double crochet. So continue working your double crochets until you get here. I will work mine off camera and then I'll meet you once we get to this point. Once you're done with that row, you will chain 2, turn your work and go into the next double crochet on top of it, make a double crochet. So continue making double crochets on top of each double crochet until you get to the end of this row. So we are building double crochets at this point until we get to the measurements of our armhole. My armhole is 12 inches. I'm using 12 inches, but of course if you're making for a smaller person, maybe their armhole measurements are less than 12, or a bigger person, definitely it's more than 12. So work with your inches, work with your measurements. So you will build these rows, and by the end of it all you should have the number of rows that are equal to the inches that you're making. So this is the second row. Continue working your rows, and I'm going offline to work, and we'll meet up once I'm done with my number of rows, and then I'll tell you the exact number that I worked for my 12 inches. So this is what you should have at this point. I've been working offline and I have a total of 24 rows, and my 24 rows are giving me a total of 12 inches. Yeah, so after you're done, actually I know you're working with your measurements, and at this point you have as many rows as your measurements allow you to. Now we are going to identify the wrong side. As for me, I'm going to work with this as my wrong side. So we're going to fold our work, and now we are going to work as a seam under here, and we'll be using single crochet also. So to work this, you will go into the very first stitch that you did on this side. So find that loop and then pull this loop that's on your hook towards this end and do a single crochet. We will continue doing single crochets until we reach the other side of this sleeve. So just pick the loop on this side and the loops on this side like that and make a single crochet. Remember, we are taking all the loops on this chain from this side where we started our working our seam, our sleeve I mean, and then the two loops on this other side of our work like that, and then pull a loop through them all and do a single crochet. So we are going to work single crochets all along until this whole part is covered. Be careful not to skip any stitch. Because at this point some people choose to work with slip stitches, but I choose to work single crochets because I find them a bit tight, because I want my seam to be tight. So continue working your seam and then I'll meet you once I'm done with mine right here. So you're done with the seam. We are now going to turn our work to the right side and then we'll work the cuff at the wrist area. Turn your work to the right side. This is what you should be having. So we are going to concentrate on this area since this part is too wide and we need to reduce it for it to fit the wrist. Now you have your yarn. You're going to chain one and then we will place a single crochet in each and every double crochet on each row. Instead of two single crochets as we normally would, we want to reduce this part to be a little bit smaller. So we will be placing one single crochet in each and every stitch on each and every row. So I'll go in here and do a single crochet, go into the next stitch on the next row and do a single crochet. As we do this, we are reducing this part. So continue working those single crochets until you get to this very end. By the end of this part, you should be having an equal amount of single crochets to the rows that you made when you are working the sleeve. So since I was working, I used 24 rows. By the end of this, I should have 24 single crochets. And the very last one, and then once you're done, you will go into the chain one at the top here and do a slip stitch. Now chain two. Now we want to start working the ribbing on this part. Let me show you on the other sleeve that I have already constructed. We want to do a ribbing this part over here. So to do this, chain 2, and then go into each and every single crochet that you just constructed and do a double crochet on top of it. So we are working double crochets. By the end of this, you should have 24 double crochets, or the number of single crochets that you had from the previous row. Coming towards the end of the row, and now we are going to slip stitch on top of this chain 2 that we did from the previous when we were starting the row, and chain 2. Now we are starting the next row. The first row of the cuffs is done, and now we're going to work the ribbing. And to do this, we're going to use the front post and the back post double crochets. After chaining 2, you're going to go into the next stitch, but now behind it you will insert your hook behind the previous double crochet, and what that does is it pops the stitch towards the front. That's why it's called a front post double crochet. And then the next one, you will pass the hook in front of the previous double crochet and pull up your loop and work a double crochet like that. This pushes the double crochet from the previous row behind. That's why it's called back post double crochet. Now we are going to work this front post and back post double crochets until we get to this part where we had started. So alternate those front posts and back post double crochets to make the ribbing. So I'm coming towards the end of the row. I have a back post, the next one is going to be a front post, and the very last one will be a back post. And once I'm done with that, I will work a slip stitch on top of the chain 2 from the very first stitch, and then chain 2. Now we're going to work 2 more rows of this front post and back post double crochets, and then we'll be done with the cuffs. So once you start, where you have a back post, you place a back post. Where you have a front post, you place a front post. Now once you're done with your rows, I have done 4 rows of this part, the ribbing part. You will slip stitch on top of the chain 2, chain 1, and cut your yarn. Really, this part you can do as many rows as you want, but I chose to do 4 rows. So we will weave in that later, but at this point I have my identical sleeves. Can now go ahead and join that to the body of the sweater, and this is how we are going to do it. First thing you're going to do is to turn your work inside out. That is the body of the sweater. so that, not the sleeve, so that the right side of the body, the sweater, and the right side of the sleeve are facing, they should be facing. And then you're going to align your seams. Use a stitch marker. You can see the seam from the seam from the sleeve and the seam from the body of the sweater are aligned, and I'm using this stitch marker to pin them together. And then I align everything and just make sure that the tip of my work, the tip of the sleeve and the shoulder seam are in line, and I will also put a stitch marker up there just to make sure everything is in place. Now, once you have this and you're sure that your work is in line like that, you can now go ahead and take your hook and yarn, and we're going to work this seam. Now, this is the part where some people will use the yarn needle to work the seam, but I like to use my single crochet while seaming, so that is what we are going to use in this tutorial. Set your hook right there at the seam and pull this loop. You can make a slip knot and pull this loop towards you, and then make sure everything is tight enough. And now you can remove the stitch marker because it's getting into the way. Now we're going to chain one, and now we will begin to work our single crochets, and we'll be putting 2 single crochets in each and every stitch from every row on this part of the sweater and also on the part of the sleeve. So just identify, get that stitch, that double crochet, and work 2 single crochet in it. So continue doing this until just work 2 double crochets in each and every stitch. Make sure you're picking all the stitches. You should not leave any stitch behind. Just be very careful when you're working this seam. It has to be intact and firm. So we're just placing 2 single crochets in each and every stitch. So when you're approaching this stitch marker, you can remove it and continue placing your single crochets in each and every stitch, 2 of them. Just cross over and come to the other side. When you get to the seam, just cross over and come to the other side and get to work your seam. You will do the exact same thing to the other sleeve because you have 2. And then once you're done, we will come and now work the neck area, the turtleneck. This is a very beautiful top. I recommend that everyone has to get it. If you're making for your clients, just make sure you get the right measurements, and the sizing should be right because it has to be tight on their bodies. So let me finish up. You have to come up to where the exact place that you started from. 1 2 1 2. Okay, so there's this one here. Then the very last one, and now once you're where you started, you can even overlap. Just when you're working, find that first single crochet that you did, place a slip stitch right there. Chain one and cut your yarn like that. Now you can, fasten your work. Make sure everything is tight enough. I like to make 3 knots like that, and then I'll weave in the ends. So if I turn my work to the right side like this, you can actually see that the seams just aligned. It's like a straight line, and then this is the seam that we just worked right now. There, this is what we have right now. This is right at the armhole. So there you have it. We have worked our sleeve and we've attached it. Now go ahead and attach your sleeve on the other side, and then we'll meet and see how we're working this area. To work the turtleneck, and we will use single crochets in the back loop only. So work your slip knot and insert your hook and chain 20. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20, and then you'll add 1 because we are going to work single crochets. And to work single crochets, you go into the second loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 2 on your hook, yarn over, pull through them all, insert your hook in the next chain, pull a loop. You have 2, pull through them both. So we are going to work these single crochets until we have 20 of them. And then now from the next row, that is when we'll start working that row of single crochets, but in the back loop only, because we need the turtleneck area to be a nice row of ribbing, and this will be formed by single crochets in the back loop only. Okay, so I'm almost coming to the end of this row. Make sure you work until the very last chain, and there you will chain 1. At that point you will chain 1, turn your work, and now in this very first stitch you will go into the back loop. Instead of going into both the loops like that, we'll go into the back loop only to form that single crochet. In the next stitch, still go into the back loop. So we're working these single crochets in the back loop only. So by the end of this row, you should have a total of 20 single crochets in the back loop only. Now we're going to work these rows of single crochets in the back loop only until we have our work should measure an equivalent amount of inches like we left for the neck area. Mine is 16 inches, so I'm going to work this part until I have 16 inches. So I'm coming towards the end of the row, and what I will do is I will go into the very last single crochet from the previous row, make a single crochet, chain 1, turn, and go into the very first single crochet in the back loop and do a single crochet. So we are still working on the back loop. When you get to the end, chain 1, turn, make single crochets, 20 of them. Or if you want your turtleneck to be longer, you can make more chains. If you want it to be shorter, you can work less chains, but I choose to work 20. So at the end of this, I should also have 20 single crochets. So I will work these rows until I have 16 inches. So this is the very first single crochet that we did. So we go in there with a single crochet and chain one and turn my work. See, this is what we're doing. It forms that nice ribbing that we want our turtleneck to have. So continue working this. I'm gonna work this off camera, and then I will get back here once I have enough rows for my neck. So I'm back and I have a total number of 64 rows of single crochets in the back loop only. And now what we want to do is we want to join this. We want to make a seam right here, and we'll still use single crochets. So fold your work into two like that, and then what we'll do is we'll chain one, go into the other side and pull this loop to it, chain one, and do a single crochets. And now we'll be using this back loop, and then you take the loops on the other side and make a single crochet. Take this loop, the back loop on this work, and then go into the other side, take the loops and do a single crochet like that. We still need to maintain that nice ribbing as much as we are making a seam. We have two left. Make sure you go into that very last one. It's very important. We don't want to leave stitches hanging. Do your single crochet, and don't cut your yarn yet, because we want to use the same tail to join our work to this part. So now we're going to cut our yarn about 5 feet. That is about 60 inches of yarn, and we'll use the yarn needle to join this part to the sweater. So you will chain one right here and pull this yarn tightly so that it does not unravel like that. We'll weave in this other one later on. And then take your sweater. Remember, we are working on the right side of the sweater, but the seam of this will be on the right side like this, so that when you turn later on, when you wear it and you turn, when you fold it like this, the seam is underneath. Yeah, take that note. The seam ought to be underneath like that. So just leave it on the right side, and take your stitch markers again, and now we're going to mark this our neck, our turtleneck to the sweater. We're going to map where everything ought to be. First, we'll start from the seam. Just align the seams like that, and then once, what you do on this side is exactly what you will do on this other side. So take another stitch marker and mark this other side also. And then you can play around with your stitch markers just to make sure everything is balanced nicely. Now once you're satisfied with your placement, you're going to take your yarn needle and thread in the yarn. And now we're going to use this to sew in this part. Now we will be taking these two loops from the sweater and a loop from the neck area and pulling. So this is how we're going to work it. Make sure this doesn't come in the way. And then also this is how I'm going to work mine. I'm sure you can see what is going on here. This is the effect that we're getting. So I'm going to do that all around until I have the whole thing sewn on my sweater. So I'm almost coming towards the end of my sewing. Yay! It was a long journey, but we are done, guys. So once you get there, you're gonna cut the excess yarn, definitely, and then fasten your work. And I'm going to weave that in later on, but generally this is what we're having, and I will go ahead and just do that. So our neck area is done, and I am pleased with how this has turned out. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful turtleneck sweater. So the remaining part is just under here. If you look at your sweater right now, you will notice that this part is still very wide, and we didn't do anything on this part. So we are going to do a ribbing on this area as we also reduce it so that it's not as baggy as it is right now. We want it fitting on the underbust. This is the bust area and this is the underbust. So we want to regulate this underbust area and get a nice fitting on there. So far you are almost done with your sweater. Congratulations, don't give up. We just have one more step and that's done. Attach your yarn at the seam how you normally would and chain 3. The first chain is just to fasten, and then chain 2 more. And now we are going to work our first double crochet and the second double crochet, but on the third double crochet we are going to reduce. And to do this, yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, pull up a loop. You have 3 on your hook, pull through 2, leave the 2 and yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, pull through. You have 4 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and now we want to pull through all these 3 And what that does is we have worked 2 single crochets at once to reduce them to make them 1 stitch. So right here we have 1 2 3 4 stitches as opposed to 1 2 3 4 5 stitches. So we're going to be working 2 double crochets, 1 2, and in the third we reduce on that. We work 2 double crochets together like that to reduce to make it 1 stitch, and continue work 2 double crochets, 1 2, and in the next 2 stitches we are going to reduce on that. So we work yarn over and pull through 2. You have 2 on your hook, yarn over, go into the next, pull up a loop, you have 4, yarn over, pull through 2, you have 3 on your hook, pull through them all. So we are working 2 double crochets followed by a reduction. So we are reducing after every 2 stitches. We again work 1 2, and in the next we are going to reduce. This will just help our underbust area to be tight enough, because we don't want our work hanging. The pattern requires that that part hugs our body tightly. Alternatively, people might actually just work this ribbing area to be as wide as the bust area, and then you use a drawstring, but I do not want to do that. I just want my underbust to be as tight as it can get. So I have worked 2 double crochets, and now I want to do a decrease. So work another 2 double crochets, and do a decrease, decreasing 2 stitches to 1. So we're going to do this all around on this area until we get to where we started from, and by the end of that you will have reduced enough stitches to enable you have the right measurements. So let me continue working mine off camera, and then I'll meet you once I'm done with that part, and then we will do the ribbing in the next together. Done with that row of decreasing, and now I'm going to chain 2, because we are starting another row. Chain 2, and we are now going to work the ribbing, the back post and the front post double crochets. You see, I've just worked my first front post and the first back post, and now we're going to work a front post, and remember we reduced. This is 1 stitch, we decreased here, so we are going to take the whole of it and go behind it to form a front post like that, and then go into the next with a back post, a front post, and now the next we can see it's where we had decreased, and that is where we are going to place our back post. So you go in front, you pass your hook in front of that very stitch that you reduced like that, and then continue working with a front post, because those are just normal double crochets, and then back post, and then the next one demands a front post, and we're going behind that stitch that we decreased from the previous row. So we're going to do that for the whole of this row until we get to this part where we'll no slip stitch and close the row. So let me continue working this row off camera, and we shall meet once I'm done. So once you're done with that row, you will slip stitch on top of the first chain 2 and chain 2. Of course you can stop here, but I opt to do another row of back post and front post double crochets, just to make my border more outlined. I'm going to do one more row. You can do 3, you can do 4, according to your preference, but I prefer to do 3 at this point. Sorry. So if you've been following this tutorial, thank you so much for always supporting me. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. It helps the channel grow. It helps me make more tutorials, and also give this video a thumbs up if you actually like it, and leave a comment in the comment section below and interact with me. Tell me what you'd like me to make in the next tutorial, or tell me what it is that you like about this video, what you like about my tutorials. You know, get interactive. Let's just have a chat down there. And if you know anyone that would like to make this very garment, you can share this tutorial with them, and I'm sure we will all benefit. Thank you so much for following. So I will go off camera and work and complete this area, and then I will come back and show you how it turned out. So at the end of it, this is what we have. This is the result of everything. And of course, I know you have followed the measurements that you want. Mine is a bit longer because I want to rock it with jeans later on, leave alone that skirt. This is the turtleneck area. I am pleased with the result. I definitely love this sweater so much, and I know I'm going to rock it everywhere. So these are the materials that we used. I have used a total of 6 balls of this robin yarn. If you're in Kenya and this is what you're using, I doubled this to achieve medium weight, and each of these is 50 grams, so definitely my sweater is about 300 grams at the moment. So yeah, so just ensure that you use your measurements well, and you can regulate where you need to regulate with the measurements, like the armhole area, the length of the sweater. You can make it shorter or longer. You can also regulate this measurement over here. You can make it more tighter by not skipping anything, like you just reduce on each and every stitch, but we were reducing after every 2 stitches here. So remember to interact with me on my Instagram page, Marion Crochets. I love you so much, and thank you for always supporting me, for always watching my videos, and I am sure I will see you in the next one. So see me as I rock my sweater. Definitely I'm going to make a skirt for it. So in my next tutorial, it's going to be the skirt, because the whole outfit, it's a whole outfit, like a skirt and a sweater top. So if you would love to make that skirt, I will leave a link in the description where you can go find it. Thank you so much, and bye.